Good morning, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our fourth webinar on the series. This time we have an amazing topic to leverage AI and ML to address business challenges in biopharmaceutical industry. So I'm Miller Rajendran. I will be the moderator today, along with our veteran entrepreneur, Mr. Ruben Kanapati Pillai. We are thrilled to join by our esteemed speaker today, with Mr. Vithy Vithyanandan, to bring extensive experience in drugs, pharmaceutical industry, and a deep understanding of the pharmaceutical biopharma landscape. So it's my honor to introduce Mr. Vithy Vithyanandan. So Vithy is an insight and analytics leader in the biopharmaceutical industry with more than 20 years of experience in the US and international market. He has led analytics teams and has been instrumental in several successful commercial launches of biopharma brands, which have helped millions of patients around the world with amazing diseases with neurology and psychiatry and several other therapeutic areas. He leveraged decision science, including classical statistical methodologies and AI/ML approaches, and market research to address critical business issues for biopharma companies around the world. So it's my pleasure to have Mr. Vithy in our today's speaker. So it's been an honor to have you.
Thank you. Thank you, Miller.
Yeah. So, Mr. Ruben, without further ado, can we kick off this presentation with have our esteemed questions, what we have on this particular industry to know about?
Yeah, thanks, Miller. It's so exciting to have Vithy your background of experience working in US for last close to 30 years, both East and West Coast, as well as your background of both MIT and Stanford on the data analytics and AI area. With all those background, as well as your working experience, as Miller specified, we are so excited to have you. And to kick things off, we will explore some of the key challenges facing the biopharmaceutical industry, particularly in the high competitive US market. I mean, if you look at it lately, with election coming and the inflation is going up, the expenses of medical is becoming so important for everybody. So if you look at from all of these point of view, what are some of the most pressing challenges currently facing the biopharmaceutical industry, particularly in bringing new drugs successfully into competitive market, especially in the US?
Yeah. So thank you, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thank you, Miller, and thank you, Ruben, for obviously moderating and hosting this event, and especially for SenseMate. Thank you, SenseMate team, for organizing this and an important topic. It's dear and near to my heart, and hopefully I will answer Ruben's question, but I just wanted to give an initial think about, in terms of, I have been, as Ruben said, have been working on this area. This is my professional focus, has been in it for a long time. So I will share, I mean, it's a vast area, especially with AI/ML, and how that, our headline was how it transforms the industry. So we will obviously cannot go into all the details, but certainly touch on some of the highlights that I was part of and share my experience. I'm sure many of you may have experiences that you can also share through the comments, I think. But anyway, coming back to, so thank you for joining, and coming back to Ruben's question, what are some of the challenges facing the industry? And I'll talk a little more from the US perspective. That's where I have a lot more recent experience, but internationally, many of them are applicable internationally as well, in Europe, Japan, and emerging markets like India, China, etc. So the main challenges, the way I look at it typically, so when you have this large, sort of broad question, you need to have some framework to think about it. So you think about it from the people who make, or entities influence the decisions, right? In terms of, obviously, we are talking about biopharma. So in terms of medication, how it's prescribed, who pays for it, who takes it, who is it trying to help, etc. Right? So you have physicians, who are the primary, who are the prescribers, right? They have to prescribe. These are medication that need a prescription for patients to get it. So it's a institute, could be hospital, institutions, etc. Right? That's one major entity. Then you have patients. This is whom the industry is trying to help. It is a business, but it's a business where you are trying to solve a major problem, any person's life, right? Diseases, and then how you manage diseases. So it has some complexity because of that piece being a business, but you're also dealing with a patient's problems in terms of disease and their health, etc. And can they afford it, etc. So patients and caregiver side of things. And then who pays for it? Largely, it's paid by insurance, right? Health insurance. It can be government. In the US, it's Medicare, Medicaid, state programs, etc. Medicaid usually has state component to it. Medicare is mostly federal. And then you have third-party insurance companies like, CVS Healthcare, Aetna, United Health. If you're from the US, you'll be familiar with these names. So that's the payers. And then obviously pharmaceutical industry, right? Biopharmaceutical industry, which is actually the R&D, who have the research and development and to come up with innovative medications for these complex diseases. There is a long process. If you are from the industry, you're familiar with it. Phase 1, phase 2, phase 3. There's a lot more. It takes 10 years or more to get a drug from the initial thinking to bring it. So we'll go into more details. But in terms of the challenges, if you look at from that perspective, so physicians, what's the challenge? Physicians are getting more the environment is getting more restrictive in terms of what they can prescribe, because the cost containment is a big part of government perspective, right? Medicare, there's an exploding cost in terms of healthcare. But insurance companies, obviously, these are businesses, right? They need to have profits, etc. Now, they are trying to put lots of pressure on physicians as to what they can prescribe, etc. So there's a lot of pressure on the physicians. It's not as if, although they are the decision maker, they couldn't decide because it needs to be covered for a patient, etc. I will go into that more detail. And then patient perspective, what's happening? Patient perspective, you can think of as there's a lot more information. Patient wants to be empowered for their decision, right? They don't want always physicians on sort of making their decisions without some consultation with the patients. And taking, feel free to jump in, Ruben. But
I know, because when you said that one, it was quite interesting, because it's too many, what's it called, people who are going to, Google all this information, and then they come to the doctor, and doctors get so frustrated because there are so much data out there. Yeah.
Exactly. So there is social media information. There are a lot of patient advocacy groups. They can go to Mayo Clinic, you can go to WebMD, they can go to these Facebook groups of specific therapeutic areas, and they got
as well as TikTok too, yeah.
TikTok, so some are reliable. If you go to Mayo Clinic, maybe it's more reliable, and some are, who knows who is putting that information, right? So you never know. So anyway, so that's very confusing state, right? I mean, it is more information, but then is it useful information? And how can pharma actually, the pharma's problem is your brand equity is being also influenced by these things, right? What's the sentiment out there about your product will influence when patient goes to if they have a bad, something they read bad, something not very positive about your drug, and they go in front of the physician prescribe the medication from your pharma company. The patient say, no, I read something about it, I don't want this one, can you give me something else, right? So you can see how it can influence patient's discussion with physician, and my physician usually will listen to in that case, or they have to correct the patient's if it is wrong information. Anyway, so that's a big part of it. Payers, we will talk about it later, but payers obviously a big part of the system now in terms of price controls, etc., especially from government perspective. You know that recently Biden administration implemented as part of the Inflation Reduction Act is price controls, and they announced recently the 10 drugs that are going to be under negotiation with Medicare, which is a new thing, and we'll talk more about that implications. So that's in terms of what's happening there. And then R&D, right? R&D is hugely going to be influenced, and changes are coming as we speak, based from the AI ML perspective. There's lots of new innovation, new companies are coming up. Google, for example, is initiated this with their DeepMind offshoot. I think it's called Isomorphic, this new company that came out of Google DeepMind, and you will see they are trying to innovate this drug discovery, and I'll go a little bit into that later. So these are things is happening, and the industry is in a very dynamic state now with all these changes.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit most of these external factors influencing. So one of the biggest thing, I think we talked about the social media, not just that, but there are so much implication of the media focus on drug pricing of few of these bad apples or thing. But on the other hand, the drug industry has to, as you said, invest money to get this one. So what do you see? Like, I think you touch on the already Medicare or Medicaid going and negotiating. What do you see as potential implication? And we'll dive into that one with what are the trends happening in that, with those kind of pressure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a big part of what industry is facing with. Especially the public's perception of the industry, right? Maybe COVID was slightly positively changed a little bit because of the Pfizer and BioNTech and Moderna. They were able to bring and obviously save millions of lives, right? So that had positively. But before that, if you look at it, pharma industry was sort of lot of public perception was, although they're coming up with innovation and drugs, the prices are too high. They're trying to make money out of patients suffering, etc. That's a perception out there, and a lot of influential people have, including political parties, right? Bernie Sanders and others were after the pharmaceutical industry, especially on the pricing. So, and then the problem is also on the pharmaceutical industry, because they haven't been able to portray what's happening, why the pricing is as it is, right? If you think about it, pharmaceutical, it's a very different than other industries in the sense 90% of the drugs, that is 9 out of 10 drugs that enter into the human clinical trial will fail. That's the statistics, right? So only 1 in 10 that gets into the clinical trial will eventually be succeed in getting FDA approval. But on all those 10 products, right, the pharmaceutical industry need to invest fair amount of money because it is entering into the human trial, and then it may fail in phase 2 or phase 3, etc., based on whatever the efficacy data. Now the challenge is, I think the estimates vary, but on average, it takes about $1 billion to get a new medication into the market. meaning all the R&D cost, all the other sales and marketing costs, all of that put together, and getting it FDA filing, etc. So $1 billion on an average to get one product through that process. Now, imagine that you have 10 products moving through and only one will succeed. So from the business perspective, you have that challenge, right? How do you recuperate all this into that successful product? But then from consumer patient perspective or payer perspective, what's the value? They don't care you failed in 10 products, right? They care about what value you're bringing to them that can support the level of cost you're asking them to pay. They don't care what you did failed in there. So that's the challenge, right? It's the value you bring there. That's why some of the biologics are priced at 40,000 rupees a month, right? Some of the Amgen product, etc. Because they say, Gilead, for example, they say we are actually disease modifying drug, meaning we are curing the drug. It's not managing it like statin managing the cholesterol. We are curing the hep C, etc. Right? So they are saying, well, imagine the savings of the healthcare cost, and so that justifies the high prices, is how they talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit it right. I mean, I live in Silicon Valley. I see a lot of these coming. I mean, beyond pharmaceutical, even though pharmaceutical is one of the area of innovation. I mean, just like you said, 9 out of 10 drugs fail, 9 out of 10 companies fail. And here we are talking about going and treating disease and people problem, not like, building another workflow company or another thing. So this is so critical. Miller, go to this next one. Go ahead.
Yeah, so exactly. So the way you introduced the industry was amazing, Mr. Vithy. So as a tech enthusiast, so my major problem in the biopharma industry, access for data, it's leveraging data from this industry is always like a huge problem, because it's always like an iron dome protected by dragons. And so how much data available, like what kind of data available for this AI when we come to talk about AI or ML about data? So how much it's accessible? As a statistician, how are you accessing all those things? How have you got this access for this data? The second follow-up on this, so at the moment, how these organizations are driving this data into technology aspect and driving towards success. So that's one of the major issues we have.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously, I mean, that's a major part of what I do, right, in terms of my professional part of the job. So one, the reason outside of the industry it's harder to get to the data, but the industry itself has a lot of data, meaning that these are very high priced data assets, right? Because there's lots of information. These are like gold mine, right? So they are high priced to access, so they are not freely available. So that's one part of the barrier. But what information is available, especially in the US, the data is huge. Tons of data is available to industry as long as you can pay for it, because these are different vendors that collect this information. In Europe, there are a lot more restrictions than in the US in terms of what information you can collect and share to the industry, right? In the US, a little less restrictive compared to Europe. But so in the US, you have pretty much every physics, I think they're close to we call healthcare provider, HCPs, healthcare providers. So it can be physicians, but also nurse practitioners, physician assistant, etc. Those who can prescribe the medication. That is close to about 1 million or so people are in that position, right? So you have millions, and they need to have specific IDs and all of that. So we can actually, at the physician level, we can track their prescribing patterns, what product they are prescribing in a longitudinally, right? In this week or this day, what did they prescribe? How much of our product they prescribe, how much of our competitor product they prescribe, etc. over time. and at what doses they prescribed. So all the way to that granular detail. Now, we also have patient level information that comes from the pharmacies and insurance companies, right? You can actually track what was the patient's diagnosis, and what product was initially prescribed, how long the patient was on that drug, and when did they make the change, and who made the physician, which physician made the change, etc. over longitudinally, right? The patient refilling the medication as expected, or are they sort of decided not to fill the prescriptions? And so we don't know the why from this information, but we know what is happening, right? So this is what's happening with patient, this is what's happening with physician, and we also have payer information. So who are the payers who are paying for that script that was written by the physician? Which payer paid for it? We don't necessarily know about how much the pharmaceutical industry negotiated with the payer, but what we know is what was the actual, what we call WAC, which is a wholesaler price. So that sort of, there might be like car price, right? There's an MSRP, but then there's a lot of discounts. We may not know, for us we will know, but for the competitors we may not know. But anyway, the idea is we have lots of information about payers as well. The problem is, and also internally, right? What promotion you did, how many sales reps you sent here, what was your TV advertisement, who was it targeted, how did did the people watch that ad, did it result in some sort of prescription, or going for the physician and asking the question. So a lot of these promotional activities from your side, there are audit data from the competitor side. So this industry in the US has tons of gold mine that's available to them. You got to pay for it, but it's available to them. Now the question is not so much of, do I have enough data? It's the question is, how do I get value, actionable insight out of this data? And that's where we will talk about AI, ML, and how that can work. But that's the challenge. Do we have an infrastructure that collects this data? But this data comes in daily, right? You got to feed it in, make sure everything is okay. These comes at different granular level, different time frame. There is data time lags. So there's a lot of IT data governance piece involved in setting the infrastructure for pharmaceutical industries, so that so the analytical folks like myself can then use it with confidence. Okay, otherwise it's garbage in, garbage out, right? So you got to have, I'm not going to clean up all of these. I am sort of assuming that what is there is an accurate data, and then going to look for applying algorithms, AI, ML, and all of that stuff. That's my team's focus, is to applying these methodologies to answer key business questions. Now, for that, infrastructure needs to be ready, and we have to rely, we have to trust the information that's coming in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one of the area which I admire about the US, they play always long game. If you look at it, last 10 years, they've been digitizing because of the internet and all that. Getting Epic, and there are various, providers who have been able to, at least collect the data. But as you rightly pointed out, they are getting, firewalled within organization or within, their groups and all that.
Right, exactly. And then it's also the supplier of the data is not the same institution. Right? The different vendors might be supplying different parts of the data, and the way they format it might be different. Now you have a bit unstructured data coming at you, and obviously now that you have to get a structure in place, right? And this is where AI, ML, and Gen AI.
I know you are hitting all the.
And I ask a question.
Best use cases for this one. So if I go to the next one to follow through this process, as you said, I mean, there is a big one is the enterprise AI. Where the AI, ML, all of these can be applied. Because I have been working on this industry in Silicon Valley for 30 years, looking at various applications. AI, ML came. if you look at the internet early ages, it came for consumer, people getting information as wider and all that. And lately with the AI, there has been, they're complaining about so much investment in the hardware, but the application, like 600 million versus 600 billion versus 3 billion or something like that, the outcome, the people were talking about it. And how do you get materialized? I felt the biotech, pharmaceutical as well as medtech industry with this humongous amount of data is the right thing. So if you go into that area, if looking at the AI ML and then generative AI with additional information, we can do that. How now you have the data access and improving. So how do you see AI ML, and from your experience, actually you have already done some of them internally. How can you tell about some of the challenges and how they're being utilized to improve the quality here?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. So two parts to it, right? So I will go into the commercial side of things a bit more detail, but there's a lot of things happening, as you mentioned, from the R&D perspective as well, because one of the major challenge for the industry from the R&D side of things, this is the research and development, right? Coming up with the molecule in terms of molecule or biologic that actually are able to go to a specific protein or receptors and needs to correct it, right? So that the disease is corrected or managed well. Now, currently the way it's getting done is sort of somewhat trial and error. That the scientist has to decide, okay, maybe this will work, and has to invest, and they may find out later, okay, it's not going to work because of either efficacy wasn't up to it, or there is sort of intolerable side effects. So because of that, you can't move forward with all that investment that you made. Now, where AI ML is being used in that side is actually NVIDIA is now partnering with Amgen and many companies, Google DeepMind, right? They have their own offshoot. I said isomorphic. There is other Revolutions Medicine. This is all out of Silicon Valley. So these are companies. What are they trying to do? Instead of going and actually testing the molecule in either in patients or in animals, etc. earlier, and those are very expensive and also a lot of regulation, right? What they are trying to do is they are trying to do it with sort of computerized versions of it, right? So you are testing is this likely to work? Because I have a sort of a computerized model of that disease category, and then or the protein folding, right? So this is a lot more details than even I know much about, but certainly this is an area there. So they're modeling it outside of these human stuff, and then trying to see, will this sort of, again, a modeled molecule will be able to solve this problem. How does that happen in AI ML? Because it has tons of past research data is fed into that, right? The OpenAI, what they did, right? They had some 30 years of internet information is being collected for them to be this successful, right? Within 2-3 years, they were like everybody's mind. Anytime when you think about, I want to, when I want to travel to Quebec, I typed it, okay, can you put a plan together? And it gave me the restaurants I should go, this I should try. It's amazing how much this has came out of just because of all the information that fed it. So similarly, in the pharma industry, it has to be industry specific. Otherwise, you will get into this hallucination stuff, right? So you got to be a lot more industry specific information that's targeted. And what can that do? That can sort of speed up or increase the probability of success in the R&D area, right? That will be a major game changer for the pharmaceutical industry. That's one part. I will get it a little more on the commercial side. That's my expertise, obviously. This is once the drug is approved, how do you make sure it's going to the right patient, right physician has the information? All of that is important for the commercial success of a drug that gets introduced by a pharma industry, right? There's a lot of money spent to make sure the physician knows about the drug, who are the right patients, what they should be able to talk to the patient, etc. Now, you asked me about, your question was, what's the challenge? Challenge is try and get an actionable insight in a real time speed, right? So because the things are happening, market is dynamic, you need to be able to get the actionable insight quickly to the decision makers. Meaning, in the pharma industry, it'll be the marketing director or brand director, sales leadership, vice president of sales, and the field force, and then those who are omni-channel folks, right? People are using in pharma industry now. It's not just direct promotion by the sales rep, but they are leveraging social media. They are leveraging banner ads. As if you start searching in Google, you'll see banner ads popping up about a drug, right? If you start searching about a disease, these are all investment by the drug companies to make sure the patient gets the information that's informative to the patient, etc. Now, so the question is getting all this data, disparate data, but then getting the actionable insight quickly and so how some of them need to be automated because otherwise the analysts are sitting and sort of going into the forest, right, searching for some information, but that's not efficient. Now the efficiency comes because AI ML can automate some of the intelligence, and obviously the human needs to be involved. You're just completely not automating everything. The human interface that comes once you sort of some of the difficult part is in terms of looking through the data is done. You can then decide what's the recommendation out of it that given all the context and expertise we have and analysts that we can recommend to the brand leaders, but it has to be quick and we need to know the uncertainty around our recommendation, right? Not everything is going to be perfect, but then you need to be able to tell them how reasonable this is to them. So anyway,
I think it's a very interesting where you are touching, because we were looking at it from a completely different industry, from enterprise technology companies, where they are finding the customer interaction and customer response and getting customer ownership is one of the best way to use is all the tools, generative AI, all the information, all the large language model, and how we can use. Nicely, you really took that one with your job you were doing on analyzing the data from the consumer, from the doctors, from with the internet doctors, and making sure the right information at the right people's at the right hand. Because that way you with that. And a couple of other things also I have seen in being in Silicon Valley is there are so many drugs went through, as you said, 9 out of 10 fails and all that. They have so much collected data. I mean, I remember there was another medicine was done for something else, and it would get later. I started using for something else like a hair growth versus other ED and all that. So it's
even Viagra,
similar thing. What I'm seeing is there are old medication went through all the data and fail. But they had a lot of data which can be analyzed using all the AI technology, as well as you can do that.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, one just note on that I was talking about. I just mentioned about the NVIDIA and Amgen. So one of the things is people familiar with you guys know the machine learning is you got to feed. You need a loop to feed back, whether it's right or wrong. It needs to go back. That's how the system learns, right? So what Amgen and NVIDIA are doing is they may try out something, and if it does fail, that information is fed back into the system, and it refines, it learns by sort of continuously going back and forth. So that's I think there was an example quoted by Amgen that it used to take, they are big into antibody and all of that. That's their focus, right, in terms of solving diseases, is through the antibody development, synthetic antibody. Now, what they are trying to say is, what they said is, because of the NVIDIA partnership with using AI into this drug discovery, they were able to bring from 3-4 years that it takes to develop a particular antibody to almost 8 to 9 months. So you can see how much already this is being applied. But there are, like as I mentioned, there is companies in Silicon Valley as well as in Boston area that are focusing on developing these data centers for specific to pharmaceutical industry, right? Because they need to bring all of that information together, and how the system is learning, and how can they develop for different therapeutic area. So huge investment in that part of the value chain.
Yeah, I think another area to also focus on it also is most of the medication so far has been, tried on Caucasian male as the patients and the data. And how do you get that one to be, elaborated and used with minorities, women, and and third world countries, all of those. I think this the process, which, as you said, the closed loop and quickly doing that, and machine doing a lot of the mundane or the busy task, it is going to help us on that.
It helps to broaden up the obviously the profile of the patient, right? You could leverage, because you have lots of information about different ethnic group. You now model it differently it obviously highlighted by the COVID,
I mean, see, that's where I'm being a technology guy in Silicon Valley. To me, how the AI ML transformation, just like internet, connected a lot of people in the world with the communication and collaboration. This is going to provide the next level of insight into 8 or 9 billion people information, rather than privileged small group of people.
Exactly. And a lot of work is getting done, right? Lots of publication coming out all around the world. It's not in US used to lead by far, but then now China is caught up. A lot of research work is getting innovative research coming out of China, India, Europe, obviously, Japan. So lots of information in the same therapeutic area, lots of getting published. A scientist cannot read all of these stuff, right? I mean, it obviously lifetime to read all of these articles. So now the AI, is similar to what OpenAI did. There are industry-specific LLMs, large language model, that are focused on grabbing all of that, so that whoever can leverage it much more efficiently what they need, or summarize, get a summary.
To even plug SenseMate into this picture, if you look at it, and the team is worldwide, but in Sri Lankan base as well as worldwide, young AI ML engineers, 150 of them, and I've been working with them to work with companies in US and different things. One thing I found is just exactly what you said. There are Meta's AI lab, Google AI research, and there are so many universities are publishing papers and all that.
Right.
They were able to work with all these latest information out there and build product based out of that. It is very interesting to see how this becoming democratized all over the world, where people can help each other while participating in the AI economy from all over the world. And that's where I think we are, as SenseMate, trying to get into that. Miller,
exactly. So thank you so much, Vithy. So far we have covered a fantastic area like the pharmaceutical industry, the availability of data, the challenges we face, and what kind of application the global companies are currently working on. So I have a very specific question. So with the generative AI possibilities and small language model possibilities and multimodals and IoT, so all those aspects already supposed to be implement a lot of projects, and large companies in pharmaceutical industry supposed to implement few things. Could you walk through us any specific instance where biopharma industry efficiently utilizing ML and AI to address critical challenges, and what kind of lessons they have learned, and what kind of business path they have come up with? An example would be amazing.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I will talk about, I mean, there are a lot happening, with Pfizer and J&J, BMS, etc., both on the, as I said, R&D side, as well as they are trying to leverage commercial side as well, right? The AI, machine learning especially, and Gen AI. But I'll touch on a specific area that I worked on that I was excited about recently, and hopefully it's relevant to your audience. So this is in the commercial side an example, right? So this was a product that was in the epilepsy market. Our company had, we launched it in 2015, 16. I was part of the launch team from analytics perspective. So there's lots of work gets done before when we say product is being launched. That's our terminology, but what it means is FDA has approved the drug, and then we are bringing that drug into the market. Lots of focus for drug company, as a pharmaceutical company or biotech company, we've a lot of late nights spent in that 2-year period getting ready for the launch of a product. Like, maybe Apple, I guess, talked about the iPhone 16. Similarly, we have to plan for 2-3 years getting ready for assuming that FDA is going to approve and launch the product, right? That's a huge part of our work, analytics work, as well as brands work. Now, what happened was, so the product was launched in the epilepsy market. It was differentiated brand, meaning that we were better than some of the competitors that were in the market. So we were doing very well. Immediately, we were able to get market share, and then we were growing almost 20% even after 6 years, 7 years into the market, which is not typically. It flattens after a while because competitors are coming in and all of that, right? But our product, because it's differentiated and we were doing the right things, hopefully we were helping the brand to do the right thing. And it was growing at 20-30% every year after year in terms of, obviously physicians thinking this is the right product for that specific epilepsy patient. Now, what happened? All of a sudden, we started seeing it flattening, and there were market events that happened. Certainly, there were product launches, competitor product launches. But we were, their data is not as strong as we had in terms of clinical data. So we were not concerned that, the brand team wasn't concerned about this is going to be a major impact to our brand. But and we had other brands being launched by us into the neurology space, which is epilepsy is part of the neurology space. So we had to allocate the resources slightly differently, etc. Anyway, I won't go into more detail there, but the idea was that it started flattening and we started losing share over time. So the market share is one of the KPIs we track very closely, because that tells you what's happening to your brand. Are you gaining market share? Are you sort of flattening among the physician, different specialties? We look at, neurologists, what's happening, PCPs, what's happening, hospitals, what's happening. So this is a dashboard KPI that all our senior leaders will be looking at as soon as they come on Monday, right? Where is our share last week? Now, as soon as they see our market share is flattening, there is call going to the brand directors. What the hell is happening? Why are we flattening all of a sudden? We have a forecast that we have told the Wall Street, some of the folks from here, probably from Wall Street, we have promised the Wall Street, here is where our revenue will be. Now that we are flattening, we are going to be screwed in the next web call, etc. Right? So a lot of pressure on the brand leaders, sales leaders. What is happening? And what happens immediately? they usually call us. Okay, what the hell is happening? Can you look at it? Tell me what's happening. So, obviously what's at a high level, they knew through the dashboards, okay, it's flattening, but they have no idea why is it flattening. Is it specific to some parts of the geography, some parts of the physician? All of that analysis needed to be done by us. And so we took it over as a key project, and I was a leader of the project with my team. And we decided we will leverage AI ML, sort of, right? Not necessarily to put technology to solve problem, but we thought this is a right use case to leverage. AI ML was coming out to at that time. This is about a year to 2 years into the pharmaceutical industry. So we thought, okay, we will leverage that. Now, what did we do? So the idea was, first you got to collect all the information, right? That's what you would do as analysts, analytical professionals. I need to make sure I have the right data in it. So there's tons of data, as I mentioned to you guys, on the physician side, patient side, payer side. So for last 2 years, we brought all that information into a separate data mart to get all that into one place so that we can dig in a lot more deeper. Now that will, at a high level, will give you some idea, okay, which physicians, where you are losing share, etc., who is gaining share, some basic kind of statistics descriptive statistics you can get it from, but you still don't know why and what should we do about it, right? That part is not there. Then the other part of the puzzle is, now you need to, in order to understand why, you need to talk to the physicians, patients. That's the market research part of my job, is to do, there's quality, if you're familiar with, familiar with market research, you can do qualitative research, meaning you have a small set of physicians, you're asking lots of questions to understand. Obviously, you need to pay for their time, but they will tell you what's happening, right, at a high level. That's not going to be only solution, because that's a small set of physicians you can talk to. You obviously want to talk to neurologists, specialists, etc. But then you can do a quantitative research where it can be a larger sample size. You can go up to, 400, 500, or 1,000 physicians, where you have, maybe a half an hour or 45 minutes of survey that goes out and they fill out. You got to pay for their time, obviously, but you can ask lots of questions related to, well, can you pull 4 or 5 of your patients where you made a switch in that epilepsy patient? Obviously, we are interested in a specific patient population. Can you pull the electronic medical records or others, which we do typically, and they will do it. They can't talk about who is the patient, in terms of name, etc., but they can tell you about what's the age, what's their what diagnosis they had, what other diseases they have, what medication they are taking. That they can say. It's an anonymized patient information they are giving you. And we collect about 50, 60 variables about that prescribing occasion, right? Why did you eventually make the decision to switch to a brand A or B or C, right? One of them might be our product, one of them might be competitor product. So you got all of that information, and this could be running into millions of records, right? You collected all these 2 years of data that's available to you, but you also sort of enhanced it with the market research data that's now coming in. All of that put together, there's tons of data. Now what do I do is the question, right? With all of the data, you don't still know what pattern that's driving these changes. So we leverage something called, in the machine learning, folks who are familiar with machine learning, there is a decision tree analysis. That's one type of model that you can run. These are they call it supervised learning, because we know the output, meaning what product was eventually chosen by the physician in that prescribed instance, right? So we know what happened. Now we are trying to figure out what drove that decision is the question that we have. Now, we use the machine learning to now, through the decision tree analysis, you're trying to come up with the demand tree what demand tree, if you can imagine, we want to know the most influential factor out of all of these that drove that decision, right? So that's where the machine learning comes. It figures out, sort of layman term is, it figures out what was the major factor in driving that final decision. And then you go one level down, right? Like a decision tree, it sort of branches out into, okay, the next level of important. And it has lots of variables related to physician, what specialty they are. Is it an older physician, younger physician, recently came out of the medical school, all that information is there, as well as patient information, right? What's the age of the patient? Is the patient admitted to the hospital? Not. Lots of patient-related information is part of it. And then you have disease-related information, is it a moderately severe patient? It's a very severe patient. It's early diagnosis, a lot of disease-related. All of that is in that demand tree if they were influential in the final decision, right?
Exactly.
So it will talk about, and also drug, right? About the drugs, the quality of the medication or characteristics of the medication in terms of the side effect profile of the medication, the efficacy information, all of that goes in. And then you will see the demand tree, and it'll sort of clearly in a picture way, I wish I had the slide, but anyway, in a picture way, it'll articulate to you based on the machine learning algorithm that you ran, what was important, most important, next level of important, You go 4 or 5 level, you don't want to go too far down because you'll eventually get, analysis paralysis. So you want to have the 80, is 80-20 rule. 80% of the impact that comes from maybe 4 or 5 factors, actually, if you look at it. So then what happens? I know we are running out of time.
Yeah,
but,
I think we have to close out. So if you can get to the...
yeah, right. So then what happens is you have these micro spaces that get created through that decision tree where for these kinds of prescribing instances, what is important for the drug to characteristic that made the decision, right? For the physician to make the decision. So based on that, we were able to tell the brand leaders and the decision makers, sales leaders and our senior leaders, this is what happened. These are not only this is what happened, now we got to recommend to them what should they do, right? That's also our responsibility to be successful as an analytic person. You not only tell what happened, you need to tell, here is my recommendation and here is my supporting information. And obviously we were successful to make changes based on this learning. We changed the approach to how our product was marketed into the physician patient, and it successfully turned around the trajectory of the market share. So I know I went a little too long probably, but hopefully that was useful.
Yeah, definitely useful, because we working on AI-powered root cause analysis for machineries to IoT spectrum. So definitely we can understand the amount of data pouring in, and without ML in the conventional way, how much human effort it takes to analyze this data.
Exactly.
So on drug industry, it's relatable on this context. We can actually talk about this the entire day, but I think time is up. So we have to wind up. But there are a few questions in the chat.
Sure.
And we have few hand raises in the middle, so I'd love to address those. So Rubanna, do you want to take it forward?
Yeah, so let me, so I think, thank you for all your information. I think one of the question came is, Diluxa asked is, in context of building a machine learning model for biopharmaceutical industry, where ensuring the data quality, data distribution, and accurate outcomes are critical, what advanced technique can be employed to detect and mitigate data inconsistency or biases? I think you touch on some of the biases part of it. So any specific, like this, I mean, our team, the people here is both pharmaceutical as well as technologies.
Technology experts.
So we can talk about mainly.
At a high level. So obviously, you have to make sure one part of the approach is workshops, right? So this is, in our case, why the workshops are important is you have a lot of perspective because of machine learning and all of that stuff. You may have something, but you also want to pressure test or with the team, right? Before saying it's a final decision, we typically have workshop with the team. So that's more from the business and how, as a business analytics person, you got to do to make sure you have these kinds of discussion before you tell the final decision. That's on the technology side. It's making sure, again, you have the right data going in, how representative of that data of the entire population. Because as I said to you, we only had quantitative research with maybe 500 physicians, but they have about it could be 40,000 physicians prescribing in that medication, right? So like the prediction of who's going to win the presidential election, they're not going to talk to every voter. They're going to talk to 1,000 voters and we're going to make prediction. Sometimes it's accurate enough, but we are making the same kind of thing, right? We are leveraging statistical techniques and AI ML techniques to make sure our sample size is large enough. And we need to give a confidence interval to the decision makers, right? I'm 95% confident this is the right answer, because it's never going to be 100% because we are dealing with sample size and we are trying to predict for the population. So you got to give some idea of, is the sample size large enough? So that's a main part of it. Obviously, all the data cleaning and all of that needs to be, you need to have trust in the data and make sure you do some qualitative checks and
absolutely. I think there are so much improvement in the algorithms, but as you said, the data, data in, data out, that is the most important.
Exactly.
Nimal, you had a question.
Yes. Hi, Vithy. How are you?
Hey, Nimal, how are you?
Good. How are you?
Man.
Long time.
Yes.
Me and Vithy went to school together a long time ago.
Yeah.
You guys are that young, huh?
Yes. That was in the last century.
Nimal was for IIT Delhi, and I was at IIT Madras at the same time.
Actually, Vithy, I have a question for you from a startup point of view. Point of view.
Yeah.
I think you kind of touched it, but you didn't touch it.
Okay.
If you look at OpenAI is being valued at $150 billion.
Sure.
They worked on a data which they didn't pay for it. They just didn't pay for it. They just took it for free.
Yeah.
And in your business, there is terabytes of information available. How does a company like Sensomat or some other startup company would have access to the data without having to pay enormous amount of money? Like, let me put this in perspective. You can start a software firm without data. You can start a firm, you go like this. You kind of raise 5 million, 10 million, 20 million. Now, if you're going to use a start AI company which will require data and the hardware, the numbers would go like this. You have to raise 50 million first round, 200 million second round, 500 million third round. Otherwise, you don't have a business plan. You have no business. So my question is that, how is this going to change? I mean, when a startup company comes and says, we can do magic with your data, we can give you insights you can't even imagine. We have the algo, but we need the fuel, we need the data.
Sure.
How are we going to pay for it? And can you tell us, how is it going to play out in the future? How is it going to evolve in the future?
Yeah, I will let, I think, Nimal, you hit the right area. I'll let Vithy answer from his pharmaceutical, and I will answer from another angle, which I'm seeing in Silicon Valley. So go ahead with
it. Absolutely. Thank you, Nimal, for that question. That's an important question. So what typically happens in pharma industry is the drug companies like Pfizer's and all of that, they definitely invest a lot of money to purchase this data. It's being offered by like third parties typically, right? The IQVIA, you may be familiar with, Nimal, which is a large company here in the US and internationally too. They provide lots of data, but you got to pay a lot of money. Now, SenseMate is not going to be, will not be paying for that because these are multi-million-dollar price tag on them. But Pfizer will be paying for it, right? So Pfizer purchased that data. Now, SenseMate would have to partner with Pfizer, and that's where the partnership with vendors.
Vithy, just let me stop you there. So you are essentially giving a model where an independent AI company will have to partner with a larger company, call it a hyperscaler, to have access to data, as well as partner with a company like NVIDIA or someone to have access to the machine bandwidth. That's what you are saying, that as an independent company, we won't be able to pay for the data.
So what Nimal, I think you are right on all of these part of it. What we are seeing in Silicon Valley is people have started dicing this one in various angles. So there are like a GPU as a service providers, because you can't go and buy like this OpenAI raising this much money. So there are players who are going to be, it's coming, it's not there yet. So they had to give that one. The second part of it is there are SenseMate like companies who have the knowledge and ALML experience and build this model. And I am working on with a couple of products called enterprise AI. So just work for an enterprise. It is not, they don't have the data, the companies, but they are building this tool. If you think about Microsoft with Excel and all of these parts, what it is, they build those tools and gave it to accountants, gave it to everybody to use it. So how easier you can make not technical person to be able to use these tools with, and that's where the natural language interfaces as well as in result. The third part of it, which I'm seeing, is how do you provide, earlier we talked about the results which are tangible and as well as it can be used by it. So the other part of it. So what I am saying is, you are right. I mean, we keep hearing this big NVIDIA, big OpenAI, big all of these guys. There are so much activity happening at the next level and it's becoming more SaaS model, but the cost is being down. How you make the money out of that is democratizing and bringing millions of users to use that. Like a $10 per user, but then if you get 10 million people, then it make $100 million a month revenue. So that is where it has to go. But at this point, as the technology increases, these 3 or 4 guys all talking all that. But I can guarantee you there are so much underlying development. Yesterday I was at the AI Edge Summit in San Jose, and you see those solution providers and accelerators and the software vendors who are building these things for enterprises to use their data to harness the information. It is there. And you're not hearing about it because a lot of people talk about this $1 billion thing. There are $1 million things happening. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely correct about that. Without the activity on that level, I don't see the dynamism if the AI industry continues to evolve, because already we are seeing 7 or 8 companies worldwide dominating the space. So obviously on the next level, there has to be hundreds and thousands of companies do that. Anyway, thank you for your time, guys. Thank you.
Yeah.
And Vithy, thank you.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Actually, I just want to add on that. So this is like a quote from Chamath Palihapitiya. So he put a perfect quote on this. So everyone talk about AI and generative AI. So if you consider generative AI and this AI ecosystem, as you mentioned, the 8 companies which is dominating at the moment. So basically, they are like fridge. It's like a cold room. So still, the industry or the world looking for the Coca-Cola which is going to be on that cold room. So people are looking. There are thousands of millions of applications are developed, but none of them build that Coca-Cola yet. So AI and the OpenAI, the industry, it's just the cold rooms or the refrigerators. So that's where companies like us, Coca-Cola can be produced anywhere in a garage and it become a multi-billion-dollar secret recipe. Still, people are working on it. So I think that's where the opportunity, as Ruben mentioned, that API-based calling that's opening up, that fridge basically outsourced for companies like us where we can build the next Coca-Cola on the AI ecosystem. I think that's still open. So that's an opportunity we all working for, because we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Being just a representation of the startup ecosystem of tech, we don't want to reinvent the wheel and become another Gen AI company who providing another LLM. It's all about building an application which is going to be the Coca-Cola of the Gen AI. So I think we're all in the same page. Thank you so much for representing us on accessing the data from large corporate. So we're all together on this. So thank you so much for all your thoughtful questions. And thank you so much, Mr. Vithy and Ruben, for the amazing session today. And we hope this webinar has provided a valuable insight on this untapped industry of biopharma from a corporate perspective, a billion-dollar corporate perspective. And moving forward, we will be sharing all these perks, the videos and this transcript, plus a pro bono application for you if you guys join SenseMate. The purpose of this entire video to show our capability and showing our network where we can support you on any industry working on AI and ML and IoT and pro bono basis on a limited scale MVP. So that all information will be reach you out through email, and we'll be sharing this video for your further references. And keep supporting us and keep supporting the webinar series. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Good morning. Have a nice day, or good evening. Have a night rest. Thank you, guys. See you all.